With Epic Universe still months away from opening, you may assume that in the time leading up to that park's opening, that all you could do right now is just sit back, wait, and twiddle your thumbs. But let me tell you folks, there's a lot you could be doing right now that's not only fun and enjoyable, but can actually help you maximize your day at Epic Universe by the time you do actually visit. And that's the thing, folks. If you are watching this video right now, obviously you're excited for Epic Universe, you're hyped for Epic Universe, and you're already probably thinking about planning a trip to Epic Universe. So what a shame it would be if you spent the next few months doing nothing when you could have been spending time improving your park experience at Epic Universe. Are you making me sick? Get on your feet, soldier, because you're gonna make yourself prepared for Epic Universe whether you like it or not. Though, I think you'll like it. That's just my opinion. But anyways, let's just get right into it, folks. The first thing you have to consider, obviously, when thinking about going to Epic Universe is deciding, well, when are you gonna visit? And this discussion really does go beyond even just the time of year. In fact, there's been a great discussion about whether or not you should visit in 2025, or if you should visit in 2026, and a lot of people are opting already to go ahead and plan their trip for 2027 and beyond because they don't want to deal with the crowds in the opening years or with any of the technical issues that might arise in those first few years as well. And to be honest, even though I'm personally not going to go that route, I have to say it's a pretty sound and logical stance to take. Sure, in 2027 and beyond, maybe the crowds won't be quite as bad or they'll be managed a bit better, but how bad are the crowds really going to be in the first few years? Are they really going to be so bad to the point where you can't deal with going to the park? I mean, obviously we know that crowds at the existing Orlando parks are already insane. How bad do you think that Epic Universe is going to be to the point where you think that's untenable to go? Well, let's run the numbers, folks. Outside of Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom, which find themselves on the extreme of the Orlando theme park market, all Universal and Disney parks fall into the same sort of attendance range. Epcot, Hollywood Studios, Islands of Adventure, and Universal Studios Florida all get an annual attendance somewhere around the 9 to 11 million guest range, which puts them at around 30,000 guests, give or take, on a daily basis on average. Now, I don't think it's implausible or even unreasonable to assume that Epic Universe could be seeing a similar amount of daily attendance compared to these four parks. And within them, the most apt comparison is actually not the existing Universal parks because they have far greater capacity and far more rides than what Epic Universe is going to open with. In fact, Epic Universe, as far as the number of attractions they have, falls much more in line with Hollywood Studios. Epic Universe is going to open with 11 rides, and Hollywood Studios currently has 10 rides. So that's going to be our more close comparison as far as what the capacity of Epic Universe is going to look like. Now, yes, capacity ranges from attraction to attraction, so it's not going to be a one-to-one comparison for sure, but this is probably about the closest comparison that we're going to be able to get. At least when it comes to talking about wait times. If we're saying that Epic Universe has a similar amount of capacity to Hollywood Studios and is going to get a similar amount of daily attendance as Hollywood Studios, then we could probably assume that it will have a very similar wait time chart as Hollywood Studios. And if you're familiar with Hollywood Studios, then you know they have one of the worst wait times in all of Orlando, if not in the entire theme park industry. The wait times there are horrendous. There are very few rides, obviously, but all of the top rides have an obscenely high average wait time, with their top 7 attractions averaging a 52-minute wait apiece. Now, that's pretty nasty, but let's be honest, folks. Do we really think that Epic Universe is going to walk away with the same attendance that Epcot, Hollywood Studios, and the 2 existing Universal parks are currently getting? I would say probably not. There's a good chance that Epic Universe might be a little bit busier in those first 2 years. And if it is, then you could probably assume that the park would likely get a few thousand more guests on a daily basis than those 4 parks currently do. And if that's the case, then you could go ahead and kiss 52 minutes on average for these top 7 rides goodbye. And for Epic Universe, you could probably assume that the average for the top 7 rides would probably be sitting more around 60 minutes And yeah, that's bad. Nobody likes waiting in several hour-long lines. That's not fun. However, consider this. We could probably assume that the operating hours for Epic Universe will likely be somewhere around the range of 9 a.m. to probably 8 p.m. to 10 p.m., depending on what Universal decides to do. It almost certainly will stay open later than the existing Universal parks, given the fact that it's not near residential areas. It doesn't have the same noise ordinances as those parks do. But if we took a pessimistic approach here and said the park closes at 8 p.m., that's still 11 hours of operation. Of course, if the top 7 rides are all averaging a 60-minute wait, it will take you about 7 hours to get through those 7 rides, which means that, yeah, you would still have 4 hours to go ahead and ride the other less popular rides, to go see the shows, to go ahead and get some food to eat, and as well as also importantly, be able to walk in between the lands and attractions. Even in this scenario where we've gone ahead and assumed that the park will have relatively high attendance, so basically we're assuming that's going to have the second highest daily attendance in all of Orlando behind Magic Kingdom, you can see that the park is in fact still tenable to the point where you can get everything done and then some in one day, even in this case on an average day. And you may be saying, oh wait, but you're not assuming enough attendance, you're not assuming high enough wait times. Let me tell you folks, I think I'm actually overestimating, because let's not forget, when it comes to Hollywood Studios, they're dealing with Lightning Lane, which has way more people skipping you in line than Universal's Express Pass. Even if Express Pass sells at a higher rate than it currently does at the existing Universal parks, there's going to be vastly less people skipping you in line than they do currently at Hollywood Studios. So to say that it's going to have very similar wait times at Hollywood Studios is already overestimating. So this is a huge overestimation versus what it likely will be on an average day. And even in this scenario, getting everything done in Epic Universe is money in the bank. So no, 2025 and 2026 are not going to be so busy to the point where you can't get even close to doing everything done in one day. That is, if it's an average day. You see, folks, that is the key word I've been using throughout this whole thing, is average. Because, of course, if you're dealing with an average, there are going to be some days that have lower wait times and lower crowds, and there are going to be some days that have much higher wait times and higher crowds. And Epic Universe is certainly not going to be any exception to this. In fact, they're even going to have an extra sort of busy time of year, which is going to be those first couple weeks of operation. Obviously, those are going to be extremely busy times to visit Epic Universe when it first opens. But beyond that, you could also go ahead and use just what the typically busiest times of year to visit are in the Orlando market and say, hey, avoid those dates as well. If we take a look at the wait times over the last 3 years, what you'll see is that the busiest times to visit are winter break, President's Day, Easter, among a whole bunch of others that typically do have above average wait times on a consistent basis. So when we're talking about that average wait time for the top 7 rides being 60 minutes on an average day, well, hey, during winter break, that wait time is well over 90 minutes per ride. And all of a sudden, that 7 hours to ride those 7 rides turns into well over 10.5 hours, making that, yeah, it would be untenable to do everything in one day at Epic Universe during winter break. So simply put, on top of the opening few weeks, if you're looking to avoid crowds at Epic Universe and be able to get everything done in one day, avoid these days listed here that have above average wait times, and go ahead and shoot for the days that have below average, right? 4th of July weekend is typically not very busy, believe it or not, and Labor Day weekend is an absolute ghost town, historically speaking. Outside of these, of course, late September is not too bad, early December is typically pretty dead, and especially late January are really dead times in the Orlando theme park market and are ideal times to visit for low crowds. So this kind of brings me back to the 2027 argument, and it's like, okay, yeah, sure, maybe you will get lower crowds you go to 2027, but if your grand plan is to go President's Day weekend 2027, you are literally shooting yourself in the foot. You played yourself, you waited for 2 years, you had FOMO, and for what? Just so you could go ahead and face longer wait times than 98% of the people who visited before you? So yes, if you want to wait, be my guest. But please do not go on any of these above average busy days, or it will be fool's gold. It will have not been worth anything to have waited all that time. And you know what? On that note of above average busy days, there's been a lot of discussion about whether or not you need multiple days at Epic Universe to get everything done. Tell you right now, if you're going during one of these above average busy times of year, yeah, you need an extra day. But otherwise, no, you don't need 2 days, right? If you want 2 days, go for it. Absolutely. You'll have a great time, I'm sure. But don't make the mistake of thinking you need the extra day because it's going to be so busy. No, if you're going during one of the average times of year, which is pretty much any time that's not on this chart with the exception of the other times I mentioned, you're fine. You're fine. You'll get everything done in one day, assuming you're going to spend the entire day at the park and are not going to leave early. So there you go, folks. You've decided what year you're going, you've decided what time of year you're going, and you've decided if you need multiple days or not. And that's all fine and dandy, but have you prepared yourself to be in line to enjoy the rides and lands in this park as much as possible? There's a good chance you haven't. You see, folks, there's no doubt about it that being familiar with the property that a ride or a land is based on is going to allow you to enjoy those experiences a whole lot more than if you are unfamiliar with those properties. Simply put, you not only are going to have a better understanding of the story and the storylines being told in the attractions, but you're also going to be able to notice hidden details and Easter eggs that are scattered throughout the land that, again, will increase your enjoyment of those experiences. So what is it exactly that you need to be brought up to speed on in order to make sure that you are maximizing your experience at Epic Universe? Well, there are a lot of Epic Universe watch lists out there on the internet, but to be honest with you, most of these either have way too many things to watch on it that it's unreasonable and you just don't need to watch all that stuff, or they have far too little stuff on it that you wouldn't actually be able to completely comprehend even the base level stuff that's going on in these lands. So I've broken it down to make it easy for you. 3 levels here. Must watch, you have to watch it in order to understand everything that's going on in the land. Pretty simply put. Might watch, there's going to be some useful information here, but it's not imperative. And then don't watch, don't even waste your time with this garbage, okay? So you get the picture, right? So why don't we go ahead and take it land by land here, make it easy, and let's start with the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, Ministry of Magic. And let me tell you folks, the 8 Harry Potter films are indeed a must-watch, okay? We're dealing with the Ministry of Magic. It doesn't show up until later in the film. The ride involves Dolores Umbridge and her trial, which doesn't really take place until the very end of the series. So, yeah, you kind of have no choice but to watch the whole enchilada here. And I know that might sound like a tall task, but if you're an avid Universal fan and you haven't watched the 8 Harry Potter films at this point, I'm sorry, what are you doing? You've had 15 years to get on that. So, I mean, at this point, I fully expect that most of you have already seen it. If you haven't, get on it. What are you doing? I mean, it's a great film series. You should have watched it yesterday, but go ahead and make that your project today, okay? That should be number 1 on your watch list, okay? Please. Now, outside of the Ministry of Magic part of this land, of course, the rest of it is Wizarding Paris. And Wizarding Paris only appears in one film, and that is the second Fantastic Beasts film, The Crimes of Grindelwald. Now, given the failure of these Fantastic Beasts films and the fact that they canceled the series well before it was supposed to be over, Universal kind of reined it in a bit as far as Fantastic Beasts references go in the land. There are quite a number of Fantastic Beasts that will appear throughout not only the Wizarding Paris part of the land, but also within the Ministry of Magic ride. So it is still going to be somewhat important to watch these films, but not incredibly important because the references are not going to be so deep to the point where you really need to watch those films to understand what's going on. So I would put the first 2 Fantastic Beasts films into might watch. The first one, not only to develop the characters and the story for the second one, but also because it has a lot of the Fantastic Beasts that will appear in the ride in that movie. So that's important. Of course, the second one, obviously, for the rest of the land. The third one does not add anything, and I'm putting it into don't watch because it is a colossal piece of garbage. It's literally one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my entire life. It is a travesty and a stain on the entire Harry Potter franchise. And if you watch this as a Harry Potter fan, oh my god, it's going to completely ruin your entire vision of Harry Potter. It goes against everything that the series has established up to that point. It completely just destroys the artistic integrity of the whole thing. I can go on forever. I won't bite your ear off too much here, folks. But yes, that movie is horrendous. Do not waste your time. So why don't we go ahead and move on over to Super Nintendo World, which, believe it or not, has people quite confused as far as what they need to watch to get caught up here. And let me tell you, folks, it's Mario. It's not that hard. It's not that deep. There's not that much to really get caught up on. And I'm going to be honest, the only thing you need to really watch is the Super Mario Brothers movie that came out last year. Okay? That's it. That movie's gonna have you covered on the characters, on the settings, on the items, on Donkey Kong Country and Mario Kart. They both appear in the movie. So really, it's covering everything. Yes, it's covering it at a very base level, but that's all you really need to understand what's going on here if you really are coming from an understanding of nothing about Mario. If you really want more information, you can go ahead and explore the games that this land is mostly based on, whether that be through actually playing them, which would take a long time, or just watching a quick video of them on YouTube. Those games being Mario Kart, I guess pick your litter, I suppose, of which one. One of the Yoshi Island games. I would probably say the first Donkey Kong Country is probably a good idea as opposed to the other ones. And then, pick your litter as far as one of the original Super Mario Brothers games. That will give you kind of a base overview of the very basics of Mario. But again, all of this is getting covered at a very high level in the movie, so this is really if you want to. It's not necessary viewing. As far as everything else, Nintendo or Mario related, yeah, you might as well just throw it into the don't watch. I would just say it's not that it's bad. It's just that don't waste your time. It's not worth your time if you're trying to catch up on everything for Epic Universe. It should not be on the priority list whatsoever. Moving on to How to Train Your Dragon: Isle of Berk. The funny part about this land is that I did originally have How to Train Your Dragon, the original, in the must-watch category. After all, how are you supposed to understand what's going on in the land if you don't see the movie that the land is most directly based on, right? The land pretty much takes place after the events of the first one, so yeah, just watch the first one, call it a day. But the more I thought about it, the fact is that the show in the land literally recaps the entire movie. So guess what? If you're going to watch that show, if that's in your plans, if that's in your itinerary, don't even bother watching the movie. It's not like you don't even have to. It's a good movie, don't get me wrong, folks, but you don't have to watch it. It's not a must watch because Universal with this show is basically giving you the recap while you're in the park. So as far as watching stuff before going to the park, it's not even necessary. It's not. So I would put it into might watch. And with that being the case, I'd sort of have the second and the third film sort of straddling between might watch and don't watch. They don't really provide any new information, but if you liked the first movie, then hey, you might as well go ahead and watch those. They're all very good movies, so I would recommend it if you like it, but it's not going to provide new information that's going to be super useful or relevant for the land. And that brings me to the last land, that being Dark Universe. And I know I said that a lot of people got confused about Mario and Nintendo World, but dude, this one's really got people confused as far as what they need to watch. And when it comes to what's a must watch for this land, I actually only think there's 3 movies you really need to watch. And that's Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, and The Wolfman. And I know you're saying, wait a minute, there's a bunch of other monsters that make prominent, important appearances in this land. How could it be only for Frankenstein and Wolfman that we need to watch movies for? Listen, folks, majority of this land is themed to the world of Frankenstein. The Burning Blade Tavern is themed to Frankenstein. Much of the village is themed to Frankenstein. Of course, the main attraction in the land is themed to Frankenstein. So that's really the main story you need to know about, right? Frankenstein, of course, is the base story. The Bride of Frankenstein builds on the world within Frankenstein and all the other stuff that comes with it. So I think both movies are important to watch. They're both very good movies, so I do recommend them either way. But in the case of the Wolfman, of course, not only do you have the Curse of the Werewolf roller coaster that's themed to him, but also the entire area around that roller coaster is themed to him. So I do think that Wolfman has to be in that sort of must-watch category if you want to understand the base level stuff of what's going on here. But of course, if you do want to know everything that's going on here, the backstory of everything, all the details, all the hidden facts, all the Easter eggs, then of course, yeah, you're probably going to want to go ahead and watch Dracula, The Mummy, The Invisible Man, The Creature from the Black Lagoon, and yes, make no mistake about it, the 1925 version of Phantom of the Opera, the silent film. And yes, I am making that distinction because believe it or not, even with the opening of Epic Universe just being months away with the land themed to these characters, you cannot watch these movies anywhere on streaming currently. How insane is that? But the fact is that the only way you really can see these movies without sailing the 7 seas is going ahead and buying a DVD box set of some kind. And the main one that I would recommend is the one on your screen right now, which I've linked both in the description and in the card. that has actually all 8 movies that I've talked about here today on it, with the exception of the Phantom of the Opera, because it actually has the Phantom of the Opera from 1943 on it, which is clearly not the Phantom of the Opera that the ride is referring to, which is funny because, of course, Universal did make the 1925 version of Phantom of the Opera. However, they never renewed the copyright on it. So it's been in the public domain for literally decades. And you can just find that thing on YouTube for free right now, as well as pretty much everywhere else for free. It's available at a ton of places. I've actually linked to it in the description here if you want to check it out. And it's a great movie, actually, for a silent film. It's fantastic, let me tell you right now. But the reason why it's not on this box set is because Universal doesn't own the copyright to it anymore, but they do own the copyright to the 43 version, so they usually like to promote that one, even though most people do not remember or particularly care for that film. And I know you might be saying, man, 8 films for Dark Universe, that's kind of tough if I really want to know everything. But the great thing is that all these movies are relatively short. They're all like under 2 hours. The Wolfman is barely even like a feature-length film. It's that short. And let me tell you too, folks, these are all really great films. In particular, The Mummy and The Invisible Man, which is literally one of my favorite movies of all time. It's both hilarious, scary, and creepy all at the same time. It is so good. The special effects, even forget about 1930s special effects, even for today, the special effects are insane. They will blow your mind away what they pulled off here. It's incredible. And I highly recommend you watch, even if you don't necessarily care about the lore of this land. Yep, so moving... what's that? Oh, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. How could I forget such a classic film? Put that in Don't Watch. We are not watching Hunchback of Notre Dame. I mean, listen, it's a fine film, but I'm going to be honest with you folks. The Hunchback, we still don't even really know if he's in the land. There's been no confirmation about that. I sort of suspect he's probably not. If he is, it's such a minor presence. It's not even relevant. So, hey, word to the wise, don't waste your time. And with that, folks, I will leave you with one last piece of advice that's very simple, very straightforward, and very much so to the point. And that is to avoid POVs. That's point of views. You see, folks, as you get closer to the opening of Epic Universe, inevitably there are going to be videos coming out from within the park, from within the lands, and from on the rides that are going to find their way onto the internet. The last thing you want to do is find yourself watching any of these forbidden fruit videos and spoiling yourself on the experiences that lie ahead for you at Epic Universe. Quite frankly, it's no different than hearing a movie spoiler, right? It hurts the movie watching experience when you know what's going to happen already. And certainly, it's going to be tempting when these videos start to roll out to go ahead and click play on them and bite that apple of Eden and bite the forbidden fruit and listen to that snake in your ear, but don't listen, don't give in, because I'm telling you, your experience is going to be so much better if you leave all the surprises on the table for when you actually visit in person. You will be so much more better off for it. And listen, even if you're visiting years from now, I'll tell you right now, man, you can hold strong, because I didn't ride Flight of Passage at the Avatar ride until 2022. That was 5 years after the ride opened. And you want to know how many spoilers I got? Zero. Zilch. Obviously, there were some that I couldn't avoid as far as what the land looked like and what the queue looked like, but I knew nothing about the ride. I hadn't seen a single thing about the ride, because the only thing that had the ride were videos that, guess what, I had to click play on. So it really comes down to you. Again, there's going to be some spoilers you're not going to be able to avoid that are either photos or text walls, but the videos, the ones that are the most consequential and crucial, that's all on you, man. That is all on you. And I believe that you can hold strong. I believe. And you know what? When I said that was the last piece of advice, I lied. Because there's one more piece of advice, and that's to watch the video in the middle of your screen right now and decide what restaurant you're going to eat at Epic Universe, okay? Anyways, leave me know what you think in the comments. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.